The theory of randomness, which says it's all simply coincidence. The very fact we exist is nothing but the result of a complex, yet inevitable string of chemical accidents and biological mutations. There is no grand meaning. There's no purpose.
And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Ezekiel 1:19. Hello, and welcome to Historica Esoterica. I am Matt K. Ultra, joined, as always, by
Mr. Roswell.
That's right.
And you will address me as such.
Please, Mr. Roswell was my father. So today we're doing, we did a spooky episode, we did a history episode, we're back, we're doing a movie episode. We're relaxing a little bit.
We're chilling.
Cracking open cold ones. Yeah, Roswell isn't sick. He is recovered from what he contracted at Area 51.
What was it the CIA was pretending to get, the CIA agents?
Oh, yeah. Roswell had Havana syndrome.
I had Havana syndrome.
He's better now.
Yeah, I got a $20,000 payment, and I'm feeling much better.
And today we're talking about the 2009 feature, Knowing.
Yeah.
A movie which, well, we both have thoughts on it.
We certainly do.
Yeah, I texted you immediately after watching it, saying that we had to watch it, and honestly, I stand by that decision.
Demanding that we watch it.
I was like, we need to discuss this immediately.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think my wording was, I have never gone from loving a movie to hating one so quickly.
Yeah.
But we'll
there was
get
some
into that.
fervor in those messages.
I was enraged. Because, full disclosure, I watched this movie with my dad, who knew the twist at the end, and decided to hype it up to us as a good movie because he thought it would be funny. Which, great move by my dad, admittedly. Like, I've got to hand it to him. He got us.
Yep.
But I was so mad. I wasted 2 hours of my life.
Yeah.
So, when we tried to do this with the Manchurian Candidate, both of them, we were a little bad at this, so we're going to try and do it a little faster this time. We're just going to go through a quick plot summary of Knowing, parentheses, 2009.
Right.
So I've got my little bullet points. And Roswell, feel free to chime in whenever you've got your own thoughts.
Absolutely.
So Nicolas Cage plays John. He's a depressed alcoholic professor of astrophysics, right? Something to do with space.
Yeah, he's playing an alcoholic.
Yeah, it was a real break from his normal roles there.
Yeah, and he works at MIT as some sort of professor.
Which, I emoji. But I also like the way that they show that he's an alcoholic is they just have a shot of him like it's a Friday night, and instead of going out, he's sitting at home getting drunk watching Animal Planet, which, to be clear,
pretty sick.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like the best weekend ever.
The first shot of him is looking through a telescope as he holds a ginormous goblet of wine, which is a great way to establish a character. Is he's smart, but he's also a drunk. He's a vicious drunk.
And yet, going back to it, also sounds like a great time. Like
sick guy. Yeah, no, it looks cool.
Yeah. Not my favorite Nicolas Cage performance, I must say. Weirdly reserved, considering what the stakes of the movie become. He never really cages out, at least
If he
in my
was
opinion.
caging out the whole time, it might be inspired. I actually have a bullet point where I wrote that his performance sucks at the beginning and then rocks at the end, but we'll get into
Well,
that.
yeah, the ending, when we get to the ending, oh boy, it goes
boy.
hard.
Yeah.
However, before we meet Nicolas Cage, my notes, I really did not put much effort into these. I'm sorry, everybody.
It's all
We
right.
see Lucinda is her name, this little girl in the 1950s, 1959, I believe.
Yeah.
And they are her school in honor of opening. She's in school and they're celebrating its
Yeah.
opening. I wasn't quite clear on what was going on there, but that's okay.
Yeah.
They're having a little time capsule. So all the students are going to write out a note and then put it in the time capsule. And then 50 years later, the students at the school will be able to get a note.
This is
normal
a school right next to the Georgia Guidestones, correct?
Yeah.
But it's also, that struck me as weird because I'm like, I went to school and they didn't like have a like beautiful metal time capsule box that they put
I know.
my school or in any school I've ever heard of in America ever.
I was gonna say, I think it's because this is rich MIT student WASP school.
Yeah.
Because I had the same thought. My school did not do anything so cool as that. I don't even know if there's a picture taken of my elementary school when it was first opened. Anyway,
this girl's creepy. She's a little creep.
She's a little spooky. Like the first shot of her is her just like staring up into the sky as the teacher like calls her name, and it's like, well, surely there's no red flags here with this creepy little girl staring off into the distance. And Lucinda sits down, and instead of a drawing or a little letter like everybody else writes, she just feverishly scribbles out a list of numbers, which once again the teacher does not take as a red flag. As she's like scribbling it out, the teacher's like, "Oh, Lucinda, we were supposed to do drawings, you silly little goose." And then she takes away the paper. Then we get the creepy shot of her scratching the rest of the numbers into the door in a little closet in the gymnasium.
She's got like blood in her hands. And I will say, if we're doing full disclosure, I saw this movie when it came out when I was like 13 or 12 or something. And this is where I got scared and made my friend's dad come pick us up.
It's a creepy shot.
It's creepy. Well, and the sound design, I will give it hats off. The whispering, I listened to this movie with headphones. It's creepy and it's cool.
That's the most frustrating thing about this movie is, even though it is, I'm not going to pretend that it was good all the way through. It was pretty dumb from the get-go, but there's some cool ideas and some cool executions too. Like some things work pretty well. It's just that most of them don't. But that's a creepy scene. Anyway, so she scratches the numbers in. Then we flash forward 50 years. Nic Cage is getting drunk and watching. He's like making burgers,
looking at big stars in his telescope.
Really just peak male performance. And his son, whose name I wrote down, Caleb, receives Lucinda's note when the time capsule is opened. Whoa, plot twist.
I think we also should say his wife has died, and him and his son are real bummed out about it.
They're both understandably a little upset, like to the extent where Caleb apparently every night watches a video of his mom tucking him into bed.
That's what you did in 2009. You watched 20 videos of your parents tucking into bed.
Which personally, if I was Nic Cage, I would assume that was not a particularly healthy coping mechanism, and maybe I would suggest my son go to therapy. But it was a different time period. The Sopranos had already finished. Therapy was cool. Sorry, everybody.
Cool. Well, but I mean, you also have to think 2009, pre-2010 movie logic. It's like John Wick. It's like every night he's like looking at his wife, like laying next to him lovingly with a filter on. The bloom. So like that's just how people thought about the past in 2009.
I think. Anyway, so then he and Caleb, they see this note with all the weird letters on it. And Caleb smuggles this note home rather than giving it back to the school.
Right. But as he looks over the note, there was something he sees in the distance. Do you remember that?
Oh, actually, I don't remember what he sees in the distance.
He looks off into like the beautiful fall forest, like just outside of like the playground or wherever they are, outside of the park. And there's a man in all black, kind of a pale man, just in the distance. You can't see any details, and he's staring. And Caleb is like, "Ooh, creepy." And then his friend comes and he's like, "Oh, what'd you get?" And he looks away, and then when he looks back, the man is gone.
Yeah. So this is the first appearance of the Whisper People, as they come to be known. So through I honestly don't remember how he figures it out, but Nicolas Cage, while bored and intoxicated one night, discovers
it out through the power of montage. If I remember correctly.
Yeah, montages. This movie loves search engines. It thinks that they're the coolest thing on the planet.
Yes.
Which is very funny now because you just watch him like type in like September 11th death toll.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, wow, he's just like me.
September 11th, 2001.
Yeah, so
Notable
it's revealed.
Events, September 11th, 2001.
But it's revealed that the numbers are dates, and then the dates of tragedies that occur, and then the number of people killed.
Yes.
And a little later on in the movie, spoilers, he figures out that there's another grouping of numbers he can't figure out what they are. Those are like GPS coordinates for where it happens.
Yes.
And there are 3 that haven't happened yet. He's a little alarmed by this.
Yeah. Well, and so the thing that's interesting is like he's talking with his professor buddy, and he's like, because everybody's like skeptical of this, obviously, and he's like, no, but you don't understand. A lot of these dates happened post 1959 when this was put in. So I don't know if this is a prank or what's going on, but there's something to this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so he's discovered this sort of prophecy, a doomsday prophecy of sorts.
Yeah.
So as he's looking through, he eventually tracks down the daughter of Lucinda, because Lucinda died of an overdose. Something about having ghosts speaking to your brain through through whispery people. I understand how that might lead you to try and do things to numb the outside world. But he tracks down her daughter, who, it's revealed, knows about Lucinda's visions. And apparently Lucinda told her the exact day that she would die, which I probably wouldn't do to my children if I could. Yeah. But, even far be it for me to judge Lucinda.
You might just hold that back. Possibly.
Yeah, I might just... Yeah, I'd let them figure that one out on their own. So, anyway, the first of the 3 disasters that hasn't happened happens directly over Nicolas Cage as he's driving home from work. He's stuck in traffic all of a sudden, and so you're thinking like, oh no, what's happened up there? It's the current date. But as he steps out, a plane just falls out of the sky, explodes, and like crashes through a highway. And that scene was genuinely very upsetting to watch.
I was about to say, it was really shocking. And like, had the CGI not sucked, it might have been like a top tier scene.
Yeah.
It comes out of nowhere, and it treats the like disaster very like groundedly, and just like, it's horrific. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's just
there's people burning alive in CGI fire.
Like the CGI isn't even good, but just because it's just like it's 5 minutes of agonized people screaming like, help me, I'm dying, while Nic Cage staggers around trying to figure out what's happening.
And he just I'll give him credit in this scene. He looks like as confused as you probably would in that situation. He's just like, oh boy.
He's like, oh no.
Yeah.
I don't know what the protocol is here.
Yeah.
So then, so that occurs. That's where he realizes that it's GPS coordinates.
Right.
Because this movie also thinks GPSs are really cool.
Yeah. Because he's looking at his little GPS display on his Hyundai Sonata, and he realizes the numbers are the exact same as the paper that he was working on.
They're coordinates, and then the plane falls out of the sky.
Yeah. Which, by the way, great synchronicity that he just happened to be driving over the bridge that were the exact coordinates of. Anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So that happens. He's understandably a little shaken up by this, and so then from there he tracks down Lucinda's daughter. It turns out that Lucinda's daughter has a daughter named Abby.
Lucinda. Oh.
Yeah, named Lucinda Jr.
Lucinda
Lucinda. We're really dumb.
Yeah.
So anyway, he tracks down Lucinda Jr., what's her name? Diana, and her daughter Abby, and is like, hey, we got to figure out what's going on. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I just watched a bunch of people burn to death in a plane crash, and something bad's going to happen in a couple more days. I want some help preventing it. So they go to Lucinda's old house, well, before they go to Lucinda's old house, I guess, Nic Cage watches a train crash. Also would be very upsetting if the CGI wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Although I will say that one, it's pretty shocking too, because you're seeing people get just like thrown around by like a train crashing onto the platform, and it's cartoonish, but it's still like, just like the thought is horrifying enough.
Yeah,
that, like,
the thought of like, a metro like derailing itself while Nicolas Cage is desperately screaming like, "Get off the train! Get off the train!
You gotta get off the train!" And somehow like every single thing like misses him, which is cool.
Yeah, he and the one person that he told to be careful are the only people who survived the crash, which I personally would probably experience some guilt over. But,
well, the other people should have listened.
Yeah. So then, they visit Lucinda's house, and they're just sort of like walking around. They see a little copy of the engraving of Ezekiel's vision of the wheel, which we will get to later.
We will get into.
And the last event doesn't have coordinates on it. No, it does have coordinates, sorry. But the death toll is 33, but it's written weirdly. Yeah. And while they're like walking around Lucinda's house. Yeah, very squarely. And as they're walking around, Diana goes, "Oh yeah, she sometimes would write her E's backwards." And it's like, okay, sure, why not?
Can I ask you a question? Did you figure it out before it happened? What
I was not engaged enough to figure it out, frankly.
Okay. All right. I wasn't like exactly right, but I was pretty sure. I was pretty much spot on the money. Where I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be letters instead of numbers, and it's gonna be like everybody or something.
Yeah,
it's gonna somehow be everybody.
But yeah, so they're like, okay, what does EE stand for? As they're standing here, they're in Lucinda's house, they're walking around. And they lift up Lucinda's bed, and they just see scribbled all over the bottom of it in various sizes and fonts is everybody else.
Yeah. It was cool that she learned to scribble in both like Arial and Times New Roman.
And so, that's like the big, like, no, the world's going to end. At which point, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, why would she write EE, everyone else backwards, and then just like the full sentence?
Yeah.
I mean, she could have just wrote everyone on the paper.
Yeah.
So, like, why was there a need to be all dodgy about it?
Yeah, she's like, well, this will make an exciting little twist for the people trying to figure it out.
And also, why did they pull the bed up? Anyway.
I don't remember. I think it's because the Whisper people, they keep carrying around these smooth little rocks for some reason.
That's right.
And they hand them to like Caleb. They're left everywhere that like a disaster occurs. One of these smooth rocks shows up. And they see one under Lucinda's bed, so they lift it up. That's when they see everyone else. Right. And meanwhile, outside, Abby and Caleb, the car is surrounded by Whisper people who are, they're whispering. They're whispering away right into their minds.
They certainly are.
So Nic Cage chases one into the forest. He points a gun at it, and it blinds him by sending a creepy light out of its mouth.
Yeah, it opens its mouth, and it's really creepy, actually, because it's a creepy shot. Just like wordlessly and noiselessly, like blinds him with mouth light, and and we get this is like the first time we get a close up look at these guys, and they are, they're all wearing like black trench coats, and they're like perfectly white men with like slicked back blonde hair. Blue eyes.
And when
I say perfectly white, I mean like not they're perfect because they're white. I mean like they're very white.
I don't think we were going to accuse you of that, but I'm glad you covered your tracks.
I just figured be safe.
And they also at one point in the movie they give Caleb like a creepy vision of like his house burning down as like all the animals around him like scream in agony and run away. Which
also
weird.
Very upsetting.
Yeah. This is the sort of movie that if it was made today, it would probably be a lot more effective because it was a little too big for its britches and some of the scares it was trying to pull.
Yeah, and I think it's like the visual direction, like if it was filmed by somebody like with good cinematography and eye for color, it would be very effective because there's some imagery that's genuinely unsettling.
Yeah. Anyway, more and more like weird and mystical things are occurring, and they're getting closer and closer to the end of the world. But on like the last day of the world, like the day that everything's about to end, John realizes, he remembers that Lucinda's teacher mentioned that she had scratched some coordinates into a door. So he shows up, he goes to the elementary school as like the world is ending, and like it tears a door away and then just takes it home and scratches the paint off to find the coordinates.
Right.
But Diana, the hysterical woman, instead decides to run away because she wants to hide in some caves, and she thinks that that'll protect them from the giant solar flare that's going to destroy the world.
Also, John goes back to school and like figures out that there's going to be a solar flare at the exact time of the final entry.
Yeah.
And so they're freaking out about that. And at first his thought is like, oh, if we get in some caves, maybe it'll protect us. But as it goes on, it's clear that it's going to be such a big solar flare that it will fry the entire surface of the earth.
Yeah. It'll be wiped away, all of it gone.
Yeah. By the way, John is Nicolas Cage. I don't think we mentioned.
Oh, I think I said that at the beginning.
You did? Okay. Maybe I just wasn't listening. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have been using them interchangeably, which might be confusing for the listeners at home.
That might have been what done it. But yeah.
Yeah, so Diana runs away with the children, so John's out there. As a side note, because of the solar flare, and this is something that would actually occur if a big solar flare happened, all the satellites are down.
Right.
Weirdly, though, John's GPS is still working, which really bothered me in the movie.
Yeah. That's funny.
So at a gas station, Diana runs up. She's trying to like use the phone to call someone. And as a side note, something that genuinely did make me laugh was the guy who like runs the gas station. As like the people around him are like rioting and stealing things, he's like, same thing happened on Y2K. These people are gonna wake up feeling real silly tomorrow.
That was a good little bit.
That guy rocks. The man who's able to stare down the government saying the world is ending, and just go like, I don't know.
Whatever. I gotta store it around.
Yeah, just really baller moves. He's just like getting mad at people for trying to steal candy bars when the world is ending.
This movie is set in New York. He's the only person with a New York accent.
Yeah, this one guy.
Everyone else is like clearly Australian trying to be American.
Yeah, this was filmed in Australia, even though it's set in New York, which is very funny.
Yeah.
So anyway, as she's in there though, the camera pans up to the top of the telephone, and there's a little smooth rock sitting on it. Oh no. And the Whisper people just get in the car and drive away with her kids. Which shouldn't be funny, but yeah.
With the full context of the film, it's very funny.
Yeah. And so she just steals another person's car and drives away in pursuit of the Whisper people. And gets just sideswiped by a truck, T-boned, completely obliterated.
It's really
she
sad,
is
actually.
Dead. And as her car comes to a stop, there's yet another smooth rock on the ground. It's the day that Lucinda predicted at midnight.
They do this thing because John Cage shows up, and he like finds her like the ambulance, and they're trying to revive her, and she flatlines, and as she flatlines, he looks up at the clock, and it has struck midnight, and she was supposed to die exactly at midnight or whatever, and it's like, no.
Call it.
It's real sad.
So that happens. When John, after seeing that, just makes his way to the coordinates because he's hoping, he's hoping that there might be some salvation to be found there. And what do you know? The coordinates are Lucinda's house. So he drives back to Lucinda's house, and he finds Diana's car there. So the Whisper people also drove here. Ooh, spooky. And so he runs out, and he runs into Caleb, his son, holding a little white bunny. And Abby also walks out, also holding a little white bunny. And they tell him that the Whisper people are actually nice. And he tearfully tries to tell Abby that Diana has been killed, and she's like, I know. They said that she's safe now. Which, at this point, it becomes very clear. This is supposed to be, they're supposed to be angels. Creepy, kind of evil angels, I guess, but they're supposed to be angels.
Aryan angels.
Yeah. And then, if you thought that this episode would be at Doomsday Prophecies or angels or anything like that, surprise, it's about aliens. An alien spaceship comes down and takes the children away. John can't come with him because he isn't one of the chosen few. And then the movie ends with John driving through a city that's rioting, meeting up with his parents, and giving them a hug as a solar flare destroys all life on Earth.
Well, that's not exactly how it ends.
Oh, yes. And then we get to see Caleb and Abby. just hanging out. They've been dropped off by the Whisper people on this new paradise-like planet, and they walk towards something that clearly is supposed to be like the Tree of Life, and they and several other like groups of children are dropped off. And that's the end of the movie.
Yep.
Oh boy, I sure did hate it.
Yeah, what a dumb twist.
Yeah.
I will say, like, when they're like in the forest and you first see like the kind of like incomprehensible alien spaceship, it looks pretty sick. Once it's in space, though, it kind of looks silly. Like,
yeah, when it's first coming down, and I think when it's first coming down, it's supposed to be similar to like the wheel that Ezekiel saw, right? So that's part of what makes it cool, is that it's like these like wheels upon wheels spinning around. And then the movie just sort of forgets about its actually all religion is just aliens surprise twist and just makes them normal spaceships, and then they're kind of lame. But
well, and so we see them on the, I don't know if you mentioned this, we see them on a new planet, right, with CGI grass, and then there's a big tree.
Yeah, they walk towards the Tree of Life,
which is like,
all right.
Yeah. They got dropped off at Animal Kingdom in Florida.
Yeah. So the thing that we were mentioning before, some things just don't make sense. Like, there's no reason for the aliens to send the message with all the list of people dying or coordinates for where to go if they were just going to kidnap the children if they didn't get there. What are you doing, guys?
Yeah. Well, it's just like the whole, why, if everybody except for the two children and ostensibly other children, because there's more than one of those like spaceships.
Yeah.
If everybody but them is gonna die, why does there need to be?
Why does 9/11 matter to them? Yeah.
Yeah. Why do these events? Why are they chronicling events that are happening? Why aren't they just gonna come pick them up as soon as the world is gonna end? Also, like, they've got perfect. Apparently they can perfectly predict everything. So does that mean fate exists and they can't change it? Or could they have like gone in and just, stopped all that stuff?
They have prevented this? Yeah, it's very weird. There's also the reason that I mentioned the line that Abby says about the Whisper people saying she's safe now is that's only there to further make you think that they're angels and not aliens, because Diana objectively is not safe. She just died. God isn't real in this movie. She's gone forever.
It's interesting because it's like, what is because like, okay, is it angels or religion? So there's no God. They're just aliens, right? So it's like, okay, so then it's weird because like the Nicolas Cage's dad is a pastor in it, and like they're not cool. And then at the end he hugs him, and his dad goes, "This isn't the end, right?" And he goes, "I know." It's like, okay, so does heaven exist, or are they just
what's the point that we're trying to make? Is it supposed to be like, oh, look at these silly people trying to cope with the end of the world?
Exactly. Is there a message? Well, and it's interesting because I have some quotes from the writer of the movie, and essentially he was big on like, oh, there's no message to this movie. It's just a story, which is like, all right, but
that's satanic. I'm sorry. I was trying to hold off on calling this movie satanic for as long as I could. Oh boy.
So you beat me to the punch, and I think there's it's weird for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, it's like if you're having a story, it's like you don't need to like, it doesn't need to be like an allegory, or like you shouldn't be like, this is about the Vietnam War, or whatever. Like, it doesn't need to be like that, but like there's no message. That doesn't make any sense. Like, so if you're an author and if you're writing a story, there's going to be a message. It's words. You're telling us things.
Yeah.
And like there's going to be an ideology because you wrote it, hopefully, right? Like it's not like, I don't know. It's
I was gonna say, like, for instance, like, the most memorable Twilight Zone episodes aren't the ones where it's like, yo, wouldn't it be crazy if you woke up and everybody around you spoke backwards?
Yeah.
Like, no, it's the ones that people remember are the ones that are metaphors for things.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah, man, my girlfriend's a pig-faced monster now, and boy, that really stinks.
Boy, I wish this was an allegory, but instead we shall suffer meaninglessly.
Exactly. So do you want me to like go ahead and kind of delve into the writer real quick and kind of tell
sure. Delve into the writer, and then, like the movie, we are going to touch on a lot of different themes and ideas and not really go into depth on any of them.
Exactly. Except for one. I'm going to get into depth on
Except for one that Roswell will be diving into a little later.
Passionately. But so just to throw this out there, this was directed by an Egyptian director named Alex Proyas, who did The Crow and iRobot, which Crow's good, but iRobot's all right. Yeah, he's not. I was expecting to see more, but he just kind of seems like a for-hire director. There wasn't really anything interesting I could dredge up on him. And it was written by several people, but the main story and script was written by a man named Ryan Douglas Pearson. And so this is a little trivia nugget that I thought you might find interesting. I can't really say anything about it, but it says in Pearson's original screenplay, the events that drove the plot were assassinations, not disasters.
That is interesting.
Right. I couldn't find anything more on that. I wish I could have found the original screenplay. That would be cool. But yeah,
probably
so it's
better.
Like less of a based on this guy's.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Never mind.
I'm thinking not, but it is more interesting because it's like, with some of the points we're going to touch on. But anyway, so there's an interview I dug up with him from 2009, the year the movie came out, on a blog called Sister Roast, which is a Christian movie media blog website run by the titular Sister Rose. And so I've just got a brief snippet of this interview that I'm going to read out for you. So, question, did you get into this movie to write a religious story or one with a rather explicit theological dimension? Pearson, I approached this not as a message movie or anything like that. The idea came to me in the form of a question. If you knew that something or everything is going to end, doesn't that change the framework of how you look at your life? How do you live your life? Change the questions? You cannot help but think that there is something bigger, and that there are no atheists in a foxhole. Question, so is this more of a movie about existential questions? Pearson, in the original script, John had lost his wife, and he had the question, what if her death was predicted, and if I had found it sooner, I could have stopped it. It was a small film that focused on John's journey of dealing with death and the questions it raises. The good thing about the way the film turned out is that people can read different things in it and make meaning according to their own lives, experiences, and beliefs. Take the ending.
I'm going to be making meaning, all right.
Take the ending, for example. I did not write that, but it worked out. Alex Proyas is responsible for this. End quote. Which is a very weird way to phrase, like he didn't write it. He's responsible for the new ending.
Yeah.
But I thought, it's like that makes more sense. Is like, because this movie does seem a little big for its britches. Like, it would make more sense if it was about Nicolas Cage's character, like, kind of going mad at the thought that, like, with this knowledge, he could have saved his wife and, like,
yeah, I did forget to mention that. Because, his wife was killed in a hotel fire while she was on a business trip. And that hotel fire is on the little list of numbers.
It was a very important hotel fire. It's amazing, too. It's because, like, it's just, like, a normal, like, A4 sheet of, like, paper. And it's like, wow, who said that the hotel fire was that important to make it on that small list?
Yeah, like, they didn't even mention, like, like, Pompeii, I don't think made it on there. Like,
or, like, just, like, any horrible thing the United States did in Afghanistan.
Yeah, like the bombing of Dresden. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, there's horrible things happening every year, and in the 60 or so years since the time capsule was buried, like, a hotel fire made it on there, but I don't know, it's very strange.
It's very, very weird.
Also, I do think does he mention that the Oklahoma City bombing?
Yes,
was on
so
there?
that's something I noted, is that two of the events explicitly that these aliens knew were coming and did nothing to prevent. These mysterious aliens, mostly white, who wear suits and drive around and watch things. They knew that the Oklahoma City bombing was going to happen, and they knew that 9/11 was going to happen. Yep. And I would like to know, they means the aliens here, nothing else, did nothing to stop it. These aliens, these glowies, if you would, because their mouths glow, they knew about it, and they didn't do anything.
And they didn't do anything, which is strange. And then I'll just want to read another brief snippet. This is from another interview from another Christian website. And this was a less interesting interview, but there was one pull quote that I thought was interesting. And so it says, quote, I asked Pearson if he had himself supplied the various biblical allusions, and Pearson said that he hadn't. I wonder which writer did then. Pearson had more general biblical themes, and in his version, Nicolas Cage's character and his son were named Adam and Noah. In the movie, it's John and Caleb, respectively. All four of those are biblical names, by the way.
Yeah, as a side note.
But it's interesting to me that it's, he didn't come up with the ending. and he didn't come up with some of the more in-depth biblical allusions.
Mm-hmm.
Who did? Well, we don't know. Weird. It just seems strange the way this is all red flag.
Yeah. So I wrote it to be about the Bible, but then these mysterious men showed up in my room and told me, actually, you should make it about how aliens are good, and that changed my mind.
So those are the two quotes that I could find of consequence, in my opinion, on this movie. I originally thought, because he showed up being interviewed by so many Christian websites, I was like, oh, is this guy like a Christian guy? Doesn't really seem to be, at least not like overtly.
Yeah. So the movie makes reference to Christianity. Yeah. So
yeah, and it seems like apparently Christians in 2009 loved that, which I'm like, if you're reading the book, you should not like the.
Yeah, as you say, do better, guys. Like, this is not good representation for so many reasons.
Yeah, so I don't like that one bit. But yeah, so that's kind of my insight into him. It's sort of kind of strange. There's some like unknowns about where certain concepts came from, and he seemed, in all the interviews he gave, he seemed very important that like, oh, there's no message to this movie. It's just a story. We're not trying to tell you anything. It's just a story. And it's like, okay, so you are trying to tell me something.
You're trying to tell me that aliens are good.
Yes, exactly.
As a side note, while scrolling through my notes, I found something that I wrote to myself, which is version of this made in 2021, where January 6th is the last thing that's on the thing.
That's
it's like 3 people are gonna die. Why is this? This is not a big deal. What's going on?
Why is that written down? It's literally 9/11 and then January 6th, 2020.
1/6/2021. What's gonna happen?
Yeah, she wrote Q at the end of this string of numbers.
What's that? And they lift up the bed, and it's just the name of the. It's just the name of the like the federal agent who like worked for 4chan.
Exactly.
But
George Bush.
In case you guys can't tell, we don't respect this. We don't respect this movie, this episode, or you. And so we're just
speak for yourself. I love the listeners.
Yeah, I love all of our listeners.
I'm sorry for going so hard at you. I got a little bit. I got some backlash on that.
Yeah, as you say, one of you guys commented about it on the YouTube. We're sorry. We're gonna try to go a little.
Sorry.
We're gonna be a little nicer.
Be nice to you, fellas. And fellas.
Roswell. Just before we recorded this, he finished writing on his chalkboard, "I will be nicer to Catholics 50 times," true. Like Bart Simpson.
It is true.
And then he skateboarded over to his house to record
this. But I made no promise about Gnostics. Y'all are next.
Oh no, the Gnostics. They're on notice.
Free
spelled
game.
With a G.
You can notice. We are stupid.
We've been so good so far about like being
like professional. Okay,
yeah, but this movie just broke us.
This movie stinks.
So the first of the little subjects that I'd like to touch on is a little thing by the name of Project Bluebeam. Are you familiar with this? Yeah.
Vaguely, yeah.
So it's a Quebecois investigative journalist and conspiracy theorist. Usually this is used in a negative context. I don't always use it in a negative context. This time I am. I don't think that this is real. But anyway, his name is Sergei Monast, I imagine, is how that's pronounced. And the general premise of Project Bluebeam, I didn't read all the way through it. But the general premise of it is that NASA and the United Nations were working together to create to fake a second coming of Christ, to make a New Age religion with the Antichrist at its head and take over the world. Okay. And now, I don't
reasonable stuff.
Yeah, reasonable stuff. I don't necessarily believe that at all.
Me neither.
But it is very interesting that his theory about these fake aliens. I mean these fake saviors arriving and effectively pretending to be God. It's a little weird when you watch the movie where these very Aryan-looking aliens take these children to this planet with like a tree of life, this fake Garden of Eden. Yeah. So I was looking at that, I was like, wow, this is screaming Project Bluebeam at me.
Yeah, that's very strange. Also, I'm looking at a picture of Monsat, and doesn't look particularly trustworthy.
Yeah, he's
I like his little vest, but
yeah, no, very fashionable fellow. But I don't trust him. He also apparently one of his other books he modeled, like by his own admission, he modeled it after the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Which,
no!
If you have to choose a book to model yours on, choose any other book. Don't do that.
My main inspirations for this book, Mein Kampf.
Yeah, exactly.
That is wild. Yeah, I noticed something here, and this is just from the Wikipedia on Project Bluebeam, but
yeah, for sure.
Conspiracy theorists have noted the similarity of Project Bluebeam to the plots of Gene Roddenberry's unreleased 1975 Star Trek movie treatment, The God Thing, and the 1991 Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Devil's Due.
Interesting.
We all know Star Trek's a bit sus, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, unironically, yeah, that is an interest. We might have to just do a Star Trek episode.
Yeah, I love Star Trek. But...
I know, I was going to say, we'll have to carefully choose it so it isn't us just going like, yeah, I liked this episode. This one was good.
Yeah, this just becomes a Next Generation recap podcast.
Something at 10,000 times as many listeners, and George Takei is our third mic.
That would be sick.
And then we just surprise him one day. We're like, hey, have you read Program to Kill, George? I think you'd like it.
I don't know what that is. Program
So then I looked up, because I was just sort of curious about like the CIA and what they've done with aliens. And since I wanted to cover a lot of things and not do any of them super in depth, this is our first alien episode. So it's like, we'll touch on everything, and then we'll revisit it all in more detail later. But I found an essay by a gentleman named Gerald K. Haynes, who is a CIA historian. He wrote a paper called "The CIA's Role in the Study of UFOs." And I didn't find a lot that was very interesting here, but I did find 2 quotes that I wanted to read.
Okay.
One of them's a little longer, and the second one is not. So the first quote, and this whole paper is about like what the CIA was doing as relates to UFOs. It was mostly just sort of, at least according to this paper, just sort of running around anytime a UFO was sighted and asking for all the pictures of it so they could try and figure out what was going on. But so here's the first quote. The CIA study group also searched the Soviet press for UFO reports, but found none, causing the group to conclude that the absence of reports had to have been the result of deliberate Soviet government policy. The group also envisioned the USSR's possible use of UFOs as a psychological warfare tool. In addition, they worried that if the US air warning system should be deliberately overloaded by UFO sightings, the Soviets might gain a surprise advantage in any nuclear attack. And now that quote is interesting to me because this is pretty much exactly what we just talked about when we covered the Manchurian Candidate and MKUltra, right? Where the CIA was like, oh, I bet the communists are doing this thing, so we should probably look into it. And it's just very funny for their first thought with the Soviets not having any reports of UFOs being, well, clearly the Soviets are covering this up, as opposed to, well, maybe it's other people at the CIA making these UFOs happen.
Right.
Like, oh, look at this. I bet this would be a super effective psychological warfare technique for those dirty communists to use. But then the very end of the essay, after he sort of concludes that, they really didn't do much, and honestly, there's probably no real reason to look into why the CIA was so interested in UFOs. The last paragraph of the essay starts with the sentence, and I quote, "Like the JFK assassination conspiracy theories, the UFO issue will probably not go away soon, no matter what the agency does or says." And now, I wasn't super interested in like the CIA's takes on UFOs until he compared it to JFK, and now I'm like, oh no, they were up to something.
That's interesting, especially like when you look back into like some of the like involvement in like the Mothman era stuff of like some of the like Men in Black type harassment, the whisperers, I guess, if you want to call them that.
Yeah, the whisper people showing up.
That's strange. Well, and anytime they double down and go like, well, I guess the conspiracy theorists will have a field day with this one, it always makes me go, okay, so is there something to it then?
It's like, why are you so confident that only the conspiracy theorists will like this one?
Yeah, because I feel like if it really was like there was nothing to it, they probably wouldn't even address it. Right? They probably just roll their eyes. I mean, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It seems weird, and especially to put it next to JFK, it's like, yeah, you guys killed him. We know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you talking about? There's a reason that one's not going to go away. Like,
yeah.
Something I forgot to mention earlier. 33. Also, everyone else. Interesting choice of number. If for a movie all about the importance of numbers, where they mention numerology several times,
and the Kabbalah.
Interesting to go, 33, this very important number to, the Freemasons and also every other secret society ever to exist.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what will herald the end of the world. Then I have two more, just little things of note is what I put in this little thing, and then we'll get in depth into your qualms.
My axe to grind.
So I have another long quote. I forgot where I pulled this one from, but this is about one of our two presidents to report seeing a UFO. That's right, everybody's favorite peanut farmer, Jimmy Carter. So here's a good old quote. During the presidential campaign of 1976, Democratic challenger Carter was forthcoming about his belief that he had seen a UFO. He described waiting outside for a Lions Club meeting in Leary, Georgia, and at about 7:30 p.m. when he spotted what he called, quote, the darndest thing I've ever seen in the sky. Carter, as well as 10 to 12 other people who witnessed the same event, described the object as very bright, with changing colors and about the size of the moon. Carter reported that, quote, the object hovered about 30 degrees above the horizon and moved in towards the Earth and away before disappearing into the distance. He later told a reporter that after the experience, he vowed never again to ridicule anyone who claimed to have seen a UFO. During the presidential campaign of 76, Carter promised that if elected president, he would encourage the government to release every piece of information about UFOs available to the public and to scientists. After winning the presidency, though, Carter backed away from this pledge, saying that the release of some information might have, quote, defense implications and pose a threat to national security.
Interesting.
The real reason I read that quote, like, the end is interesting, eyebrow-raising. I also just liked him calling it the darndest thing he'd ever seen. It's the most Jimmy Carter way to describe something.
I don't know a lot about presidents, especially recent ones, but like everything I see about him, I'm like, oh, this guy's adorable.
Yeah.
He's like 3 feet tall next to Joe Biden.
Yeah, that picture is insane.
It's so crazy.
Wild vibes on that photo.
But he just seems like adorable. Like he's a peanut farmer, which is the cutest profession. I mean, maybe not in like real life, but like on paper, that's adorable.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was going to say, the only things I've seen about him are very cute, which is part of why I'm like, what's Jimmy hiding?
What is he up to?
How did he live this long? But anyway, so I just wanted to put that out there, that Jimmy Carter promised to unveil information about UFOs and then
took it back.
And then was like, oh no, never mind. I can't show you guys this. I'm sorry. Yeah. Which is very funny that like back in the day you had to acknowledge the presidential promises you went back on. Like, now you just don't mention it again.
You're like, I didn't say that, Jack.
And then people will yell at you on Twitter for bringing it up. Like, just let them do it for you.
People with the Ukraine flag in there.
Ooh, we're getting spicy.
Ooh. I just notice things. I'm a noticer.
And my last little note.
Yeah.
Roswell, I believe you're familiar with him, but just to be safe, how much do you know about one Jack Parsons?
I know a bit about Jack Parsons. I know he started the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and made some pretty big breaks in jet rocket technology. And also, he happened to be an occultist Thelemite weirdo who blew himself up.
Yeah, or was blown up, depending on who you ask.
Yeah,
so I just out of curiosity, I pulled up his Wikipedia and hit Control F and typed in UFO to see if anything would come up. And oh boy, it sure did. So, while Jack Parsons and Elrond Hubbard, Elrond Hubbard, were performing a series of rituals to summon the Thelemite goddess Babylon, which is the thing that they were doing.
Sometimes you
Actually,
gotta.
just as a side note, Parsons was immediately impressed by Hubbard when he met him, so much so that he wrote to Aleister Crowley that although he had no formal magical training, quote, he has an extraordinary amount of experience and understanding in the field. From some of his experiences, I deduce he is in direct touch with some higher intelligence, possibly his guardian angel. He is the most thelemic person I have ever met, and is in complete accord with our own principles. End quote. So, just thinking about maybe other religions that started in the 20th century and heavily feature alien saviors. Something to bear in mind. Anyway, so while they were doing their rituals to summon the goddess Babylon, eventually their final ritual was out in Joshua Tree, and he decided it wasn't in Joshua Tree. Sorry, Marjorie Cameron did something else in Joshua Tree. But he decided, he's like, okay, the rituals are done now. We've summoned her. Now we just gotta wait. And then one Marjorie Cameron knocked on his door a little bit later. And as a side note, just looking at her Wikipedia page, just that picture, the witchy e-girl has always had the hold over me that she does now. Let me tell you.
Oh, buddy, I googled Marjorie Cameron before, and let me tell you,
yeah,
my heart was swayed.
Yeah, be it in the 1940s or the 2020s. Yep. That's all we gotta say.
That's all you gotta say.
Anyway, so
it's kind of like when I found out that what's her name, Zena LeVay, was like incredibly hot.
Oh yeah,
have you seen
her? yeah.
That still
I
of
could
her,
fix
like,
her
on her. Yeah, I know. I saw her and I was like, I'm a Christian.
That's very funny. The idea of like a Satanist who can't date a Christian. It's like, I'm sorry, Dad, he doesn't worship the devil. But
yeah, I mean, she brings home just like, like a guy in a button up with like glasses. And your dad's like, who is this? No daughter of mine.
But anyway, so Parsons, for his part, immediately became obsessed with her, and we can't blame him. So he was he viewed her as a manifestation of the thelemic Scarlet Woman, which is something that we're going to have to do an episode on Thelema soon, I guess.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And despite her lack of knowledge on the subject or of the rituals, he was convinced that she was effectively like the answer to them. And I bring all this up to say that at one point she just mentioned a sighting of a UFO to Parsons, and he secretly noted this down in a journal as a manifestation of Babylon. Which, I don't know, just thought that was interesting. Yeah. And then, following his death in the mysterious explosion in his laboratory in 1952, this same Marjorie Cameron would theorize that the UFO activity over Washington, D.C. that happened that year was a spiritual reaction to his death. And Kenneth Grant, another Thelemite, stated once that Parsons' occult activities he theorized at least, that they kicked off the bout of regular UFO sightings, most notably those in Roswell, New Mexico. All this is to say, Roswell, I'm going to ask about your opinion on this in a moment, but personally, I'm not a big alien believer. UFOs are, I think, the least interesting part of conspiracies to me. But I do think that if this group of, black magic doing freaks who are all trying to summon the Aeon of Horus are like, oh, these UFOs are a good thing, they're magic. I don't know. Maybe don't get on the spaceship with them if they tell you the world's going to end and they're going to take you to a new Eden. Right. But anyway, Roswell, what do you think about aliens? What's your general take on them?
I don't really think they exist, at least not in kind of like the cultural zeitgeist way. I don't know, like just from like the statistical improbability of it all, with the size of the universe and with like the way travel would have to work. Aliens in the way we think of them as like, I don't know, it would have to be something incomprehensible to us, right? Perhaps like an angel.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of on the like, side of that, and I, like especially with like UFO sightings and stuff, I'm pretty critical of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I also find it to be the least interesting of like conspiracy theory stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that does remind me though. There was I found while I was just looking things up, a paper written by one, what was his name? Lambros D. Kalimahos, a name that I am almost certain I've butchered.
No, you got it perfect.
But, who, the first line on his Wikipedia is that he was a U.S. Army cryptologist and a flute player, which is a pretty cool lineup.
He's known for two things.
He wrote a paper that was declassified by the NSA on October 21st, 2024. No, 2004, not 24. That's 2 years from now.
Not quite right.
Called Communication with Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And sort of on that note that you were making, all I could think, I was hoping there'd be something interesting in there. It was pretty boring. And also, all I could think the whole time was like, man, what hubris. Because like they're talking about like talking to them in base 2 or like using these basic pictographs that symbolize like the number of planets in the solar system. And it's like, you're assuming that they have eyes, man. Like, I don't know. Personally, I think that if aliens visited us from 10 million light years away, there's nothing to even say that they would be carbon-based. Like, why are you assuming that they're, like, going to look at this thing and be like, clearly this is a drawing of a man, and he's holding hands with me. They want to be friends.
Right. Yeah, that's a good
anyway,
point.
no hate to my boy Lambros, because he did perform flute in Munich in 1935, which is not a great time to be a German musician. Yeah. But apparently there's 2 CDs of his performances that have been recorded and released. So Historica Esoterica merch coming soon. We're just going to be selling this guy's CDs.
I just want to, can I hop back to Jack Parsons for a brief minute?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. So we mentioned he started JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which was heavily managed or related to Caltech and NASA. Something to note. He also spoke with Werner von Braun when he was young. So he's
also
connected
something
to
to note.
Also something to note. He's connected to Aleister Crowley. He's connected to Marjorie Cameron, who was a star of a later film called The Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome, which is by Kenneth Anger. Who is a Satanist who's connected to other Satanists. And
every Satanist.
Yes.
Kenneth Anger had a prolific network.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, and his films inspired people like George Lucas and others of the new wave.
Steven Spielberg. Yeah. Other famous Satanists.
It's just interesting to think that, like, people like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and some more modern people, overlap with people who overlap with our sister Crowley and that ilk. And it's just kind of this thing. But there are also like a lot of tendrils branching into military and space research from these people, by the way. So, obviously, of course, we mentioned Elrond Hubbard, who was he was involved with the military and
he also famously had a passing interest in space.
Yes. He was a little bit into it. But it's very strange, right? And so, I don't know, it makes you kind of throw your eyebrows up at NASA, kind of like, okay.
And
this is the
NASA
guy who
and
started you.
Yeah, any other groups of rich freaks who are very obsessed with leaving the Earth and possibly colonizing other worlds for some reason.
Yeah, so strange.
Yeah, sorry, Reddit, you worship the devil, is what I'm saying there.
And by the way, space isn't real. No, I'm just kidding. That would be a funny turn to take.
Awesome reveal. An hour into the episode is that we're flat earthers. Yeah.
I do believe it's a flat circle, but you can go on both sides. That's my it's a big coin. Anyway, no, but those are just some interesting like threads that all connect, and maybe we'll get into those and dissect those in a different way.
Parsons is going to have to be. I mean, we could do a mini series on Parsons with how much crazy stuff he got up to in his life.
Yeah. Did you see the painting of him by Marjorie Cameron? Him as the Angel of Death.
Yes, which
it's rough.
It goes pretty hard, I'll admit.
It's really cool. It looks like a D&D 5e drawing.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's very scary.
Anyway, that's it for my notes. So let's crack open the Bible, the good book.
Yeah, it's time to consult Scripture. Finally.
Yeah, after we've talked about these occultists, we've got to balance things out.
Yeah. Well, and I hate to do this. I hate to be super Christian on Mike, but I did want to clear some things up because obviously there's some biblical things mentioned, and so I wanted to kind of clear the air on a few of the things they cover. So most specifically, there's a picture in Lucinda's house in the movie, which is like a wood carving of Ezekiel's wheel by Matthäus Marian from the 1600s. And so in the movie, they look at it and it's essentially like you see like God in the sun and there's like light coming out from him. And in the whole point is that like, oh, look, it's the sun behind God. And this is like a warning that the sun's going to get us, right? That's how they interpret Ezekiel's chariot vision, which is wrong. Sorry.
Very funny if you have read the Bible and know what the book of Ezekiel is about.
Yes. It's not even close. I'm sorry. Like, and we were saying this before we started recording, but it's like, you need to choose a apocalyptic Bible prophecy for your movie, and you skip over Revelation and go to Ezekiel. Like,
what are you doing, man?
What are you doing? Like, you could have even gone to Isaiah and found better, things that were actually, I guess, kind of fitting apocalyptically. But
I'm just imagining Nic Cage like reading the Song of Solomon, where he's like, "My God, it's a warning."
It's a warning. Hind like a mountain goat, breasts like mountains. I'm so sad I had that right on the dome. Just quoting it correctly. But yeah, so basically the wood cutting that they're looking at it's actually for a medieval like carving of like something biblical. It's pretty good, but not quite right. Basically it shows like God, radiating light above the clouds, and then we see the wheel that's described with the eyes, and then the cherub angel, and then Ezekiel being like, whoa, on the ground. But it's missing a few things. It's missing a giant sapphire platform, which supports, or at least is under the glory of God Almighty, as well as like the two cherubs and the wheels, which support that, to make it some sort of like makeshift chariot. So that's interesting. And also like the sun is not quite right. I don't think it's supposed to be a sun in the carving. I think that's just how the writers misinterpreted it. More likely it depicts what verse 4 of chapter 10 of Ezekiel describe as the glory of Jehovah, or Yahweh, or however you want to transliterate the tetragrammaton. So it's like this like radiating glory of light, because they don't depict God as like a person like medieval people did. It's just like it's his glory. It's indescribable, right? So that's probably what that's talking about. But anyway, to clear that up, I wanted to briefly read a few selections from Ezekiel 10 just to describe what this thing actually looked like, and then give you a brief interpretation of what it meant and how it does not apply at all to Knowing 2009 starring Nicolas Cage. Okay, so this is Ezekiel 10 verses 1, 9 through 12, and 14. So starting in verse 1. As I was watching, I saw above the expanse that was over the heads of the cherubs something like a sapphire stone appearing above them, and its appearance resembled a throne. As I was watching, I saw 4 wheels beside the cherubs, 1 wheel beside each cherub, and the wheels appeared to grow like chrysolite stone. As for their appearance, the 4 of them were alike, looking as though a wheel were within a wheel. When they moved, they could go in any of the 4 directions without turning, because they would go to the place where the head would face without turning. Their entire bodies, their backs, their hands, their wings, and the wheels, all 4 of them, were full of eyes all around. And then verse 14, this is describing the cherubs. They're described in 2 different ways, but this is one of them. It says, each one had 4 faces. The first face was the face of a cherub. The second face was the face of a man. The third was the face of a lion. And the fourth was the face of an eagle. End quote. And by the way, just to clear it up, when you think cherub, you generally think like a pudgy little baby, which is a later interpretation of cherub, like in like medieval times, based off of Eros, the Greek Cupid type guy. It's just not what cherubs in the Bible look like.
They just look better on a cathedral.
They just look better on a cathedral. And also, again, Catholicism integrating paganism and Roman beliefs into the... Well, we don't need to get into it.
We're going to put that point on timeout for a couple episodes. Let everything blow over.
We actually love Catholics. And so... But the whole point of that is like it's not a cute little baby face. It's the incomprehensible face of an angel. So it's a pretty like fascinating and visually interesting and inspiring like vision. And it's it's a vision, so it's not literal generally. It's considered to be figurative. Like, God doesn't need to ride around on a little chariot. Like, it's meant to mean something. And so here's kind of a brief interpretation. Obviously, you're going to find all sorts of interpretations. This is the one I think holds the most water and makes the most sense. But there are 4 cherubs and 4 wheels supporting the thrones. And the number 4 in the Bible is often used to suggest symmetry and completeness and universality. So the 4 cherubs represent all of God's heavenly sons, right? It's the complete expanse of the angels. And the wheels of the cherubs are also full of eyes, sort of suggesting vigilance and alertness, watchfulness.
Vigilant citizens.
Well,
if you would.
Vigilant, if you would. And also, like, I think the multiple eyes could perhaps maybe represent that it's not just the 4 that you're seeing, but there's many more beyond that. It's kind of myriads and myriads. And also, like, the description Ezekiel describes that it's a gigantic vehicle, making even the impressively sized cherubs look kind of small. So, like, this, heavenly organization of God is gigantic, even beyond the angels. And, of course, what's above that is the gigantic glory of God, which is even more awe-inspiring than that. So the whole point is that it's kind of giving you the oneness and power and kind of organization of God. That's kind of like the idea. And it's incorrectly used as apocalyptic, which is not at all what the book of Ezekiel is about.
In any way.
in any way. And honestly, like, you could have done that with Revelation, but Revelation's not as spooky as... it's spooky, but
personally, I think Revelations is way spookier with, like, the 7-headed dragon rising from the...
It's way spookier, but it's not as spooky as people make it out to be, is what I meant to...
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a happy ending to it. It's not an apocalyptic book. Sorry. Rapture's not real. Sorry. But yeah, so that was just my little axe to grind. I wanted to clear that up because it's just a very strange way to miss the mark on something very simple biblically.
Yeah.
And also it's a very interesting topic, so.
Yeah, and you know what? Since you put your cards on the table and talked about getting scared of the movie, I'm going to put my cards on the table, also admit something embarrassing.
Oh, no.
I was in a competitive barbershop group in high school, and we sang an arrangement of a song about Ezekiel's vision. And the entire time you were doing that, I was just sort of like humming to myself, like, Ezekiel saw the wheel. Da, 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 da. Anyway, so that's my little embarrassing thing I did.
I do want to note, I wasn't embarrassed about being a scared child in a movie. So you didn't have to do that.
Oh, no. No.
But that is great Matt lore.
Yeah.
Maybe I said I was embarrassed, so. But, I was embarrassed at the time. I'm not embarrassed now. But
yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Being in a barbershop quartet is nothing to laugh about, Matt. Yeah, especially one that sings Christian songs.
Yeah, unironically, it was a really very fun thing. Wow,
actually,
that was
honestly,
probably the dumbest sentence I've ever said. It was a really very fun thing. It's really a very fun time.
I become. But no. Here's the thing: barbershop quartets, a cappella gets ragged on a lot, but it's a fun pastime. Let people sing.
Just don't be annoying about it.
Just don't be annoying about it.
If you sing a cappella for any reason other than watching Glee and thinking, "Ooh, I want to be like them," then I respect you for it. Yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah. You like music. But anyway, I don't know. That's all I had to say about that. Hopefully,
I was gonna say, I think we've
out too hard.
We've covered. No, I also thought it was very interesting. Admittedly, we host a podcast together, so our interests do overlap a little bit.
That's true.
But I'm hoping that our audience will also be interested in all this.
I guess to wrap it up in a nice bow, because this is kind of a more loose conversation we've had.
Mm-hmm.
What are your general thoughts on the film, quality-wise, and also like in relation to our purposes here?
So I thought the movie, like I said earlier, I thought the movie was dumb the whole time I was watching it, but I was having a great time with it. And the moment where the satanic aliens came down from Earth and rescued several children to take them to a fake Eden, I soured on it pretty quickly. But I think, like we said, there's some very effective scenes that would probably be even more effective if they looked good. And yeah, I don't know. It played around with some interesting ideas, and ultimately its answer is just, LOL, sorry, the Earth's gone now, bye.
Yeah.
Which I was disappointed by.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same way. You know, it's silly, it's bad, and it's incomprehensible. And I guess the writer was right when he said there's no message, so people can read what they want. But that's not also entirely true. There is a message which is like, aliens good, the world's gonna end. Which, you know, in light of Jeff Bezos taking day trips to the sun or whatever, wherever he's going, it's kind of like in bad taste. You know, I think, you know, that it's like, oh, all these wonderful white aliens will take also only white children into space, and everyone else is gonna die, and you know, I guess that just kind of stinks.
Yeah, it's something else eventually. So like I said, this is it's a relaxed episode. We just sort of wanted to chill a little bit.
Yeah,
it's, you know, we're in August now, everybody. It's like it's a time to relax, take it easy, drink a little bit, and watch Animal Planet. You know, that's the vibe that we're gonna be bringing forward.
Look up at the stars and go, look, it's the constellation. It's the constellation. Is that a good Nic Cage?
It's pretty good. Yeah, I don't mind. I like it. My
we
family
need to get into more impressions on this podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, now that a certain podcast has pivoted to being a talk show, we've got to pick up the.
We gotta pick up the slack.
Anyway, all that said, you can find us on Twitter at HistEsoteric. You can find us on Instagram at Historica Esoterica, and you can find us on YouTube also at Historica Esoterica. Yeah. I believe all of our episodes are up now, right?
Yeah, and this one, I think I'm probably gonna upload the YouTube videos maybe a little later in the week than the audio videos, because they take a little bit longer to edit. But they should be both up pretty soon.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
So reach out to us. Let us know what you think.
Cool.
We promise that we'll be serious again on the next episode. We don't know exactly what it is yet.
Sorry if we were a little too silly, but we were having fun.
We were having fun. I worked a shift today, so I was tired. You know, we're all we're hanging out.
So, but we hope you had a good time. And if you can, please rate us and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Give us a little 5 stars. Tell us what you think. What's your favorite alien? Greys? Nordics? Better not be Nordic.
Don't make it the Nordics.
You racist. But anyway, have a nice week. We'll see you later. And with that being said, keep your eyes on the skies and your hands off my fries.